it's not as hard if you're just making small adjustments here and there. And right now we might be more tilted towards income, but maybe once things change a little bit, we'll go back to growth. Other people getting started with investing, you don't have to make things complicated. You can keep it as simple as you want. Biggest thing that's going to get you the best result is just saving capital. So if you can prioritize saving money, of course, it's important to find a good investment, find investment that works for you, that aligns with your goals, that's going to get you the returns you want. But the biggest goal that's going to get you there, and the biggest thing that worked for us, was just saving the capital. Like prioritize your personal finance, educate yourself, and always learn. Always be sure you're learning new things. Be open to new ideas, at least to the idea of looking into them, right? I don't know if you guys can see my cat running back and forth there. So my girlfriend wanted to call her Cappuccino, which is a bit of a mouthful. So we call her Cacino, and that's her name there. So, but she's awesome.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Momentum Finance channel. I'm super pumped and excited to be welcoming one of the greatest when it comes to the world of financial content creation, Robin. Welcome to the show, Robin.
Thanks, Mo. Thanks for the nice introduction. I appreciate it very much.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I've been honestly following your YouTube channel for as long as I remember. I remember watching your videos around investing is simple, and it's so amazing to see how your portfolio has grown over the years, and you're genuinely a nice guy. I really appreciated that. That's why it's resonated with me so much. For those, Robin, who may not know you as well, can I have you quickly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about who you are?
Sure. So my name's Robin, obviously, and most people will probably know me from YouTube. As Mo said, I started the YouTube channel back, I think it was in the beginning of 2020, maybe towards the end of 2019. That's when I first really got started with doing my own thing with investing, like manage my own portfolios and whatnot. And it's been a bit of a ride. You know, back in the day, I learned a lot over time, and basically the YouTube channel was just a place for me to learn, to share my results, and I got a lot of great feedback from people, and it's just been adjusting things and going with things and learning things along the way. And some people might also know me from Blossom a little bit. I also was on there in the beginning days, and it's been a great platform. I do apologize. I'm not the biggest social media kind of guy, even though I do have a YouTube channel. I know that sounds kind of weird. So I don't tend to post too much. I try to do it in my free time here and there, but I'm always lurking in the background. So if you guys ever want to send me a message or anything like that, feel free to do so, and I'll try to get back to you guys whenever possible. But yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not too much to talk about otherwise. I'm just kind of a regular guy, and I've been sharing my journey online on the YouTube channel. So if you guys want, just to take a peek and you watch a video, and you'll pretty much learn everything there is about me right there. So
Yeah, 100%. I love that, because the videos, the one that you go through your portfolio, very transparent. You do share where your accounts are, what you've done in terms of buys or sells, why you're investing in it. And even most recently on Blossom, I know you've posted a few posts. You're talking about you've started dabbling into margin accounts and how you're approaching it, what your thought process is. I love that transparency as well, and being open to learn from others. So that seemed like really came through some of those posts. Did the pandemic kind of trigger that whole point of getting into investing, or were you saving and investing prior to that?
it was right before that. I remember kind of really getting into it in 2019, kind of the beginning of the year. At that time, I was just getting into, savings account. I was just getting started with, I actually used Wealthsimple Invest as a robo-advisor to kind of just experiment, and I was just putting money in. And then I think around 2019, after I kind of got some results, I took a peek at my investments, and I was kind of intrigued by certain ones were doing better than others. So that's when I started to learn, hey, can I customize this? Can I do it more towards what I want? And that's happened to be right around COVID. So that was, maybe I got lucky with that, but yeah, that's kind of how that worked out.
And I believe your portfolio has evolved quite a bit since the beginning days, right? If you were to think about your portfolio as is at the time of your talking about it, do you mind sharing with us roughly how many holdings you have? And if you could perhaps share the top 3 and the why behind it, that would be fantastic. In saying though, I want to also caveat for the folks who are watching the video, this is not by any means financial advice. Robin and I, we are not financial advisors. We are sharing just our experiences. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not an expert or anything. I'm just a regular guy sharing my experience. Exactly. But yeah, to give you guys a bit of an idea, there's we've always been focused on growth-oriented investing, mostly because of the fact, I grew up in a middle-class family, but when I moved out and started on my own, we was lower income. So on that note, I spent a lot of my younger years, in my early 20s to mid 20s, kind of trying a bunch of different things, experimenting with different things. So kind of in my later 20s, when I started getting involved with investing, kind of had to play a little bit of catch up. So that's why growth investing for me made the most sense, because I wanted to get the best bang for my buck. So my biggest holding is going to be the S&P 500 in the form of VFV, mostly because it's just the easiest way for me to get started with it. Back when I first started investing with Wealthsimple, they didn't have USD accounts and all those different things. So I just picked an easy option, kept it simple. So VFV is my biggest holding, and I think it's roughly, give or take, around 60% of the portfolio at any point in time. And then the other percentage is VDY, our Canadian dividend stocks. I love dividend stocks. It's one of the biggest things that got me excited about investing, seeing those dividends compound and grow. Yeah, I love passive income. That was the biggest thing, I think, with investing. Like, I love the long-term growth and all that, but the money growing on a monthly basis was just something that just really resonated with me, especially, again, coming from that, that lower income background. It made a big difference, even if it was just like the idea of making $50 a month, $100 a month, that kind of thing. And then last but not least, I've been experimenting with some passive income covered call funds. And that kind of happened through, and there are various funds. I'm just kind of list them in one basket there. But there are various funds, just a couple, kind of been experimenting. And the idea there is to just top up a little bit of extra income. And that kind of happened after we grew our capital a little bit. So our portfolio kind of grew a little bit, so we can make small adjustments. And, they're meaningful, but we're not deviating too much from our main goal, which is, mostly growth there.
Fascinating. I love that balance, and I love how you over the years found your more of a sweeter spot, and particularly with VFE, or S&P 500 as a whole. It does seem to be, for many investors, when they're starting out, really fun that can be considered, I would say, with so many folks. Even though it's not the global entire stock market, still US is a dominant player definitely in the world, and one that I think we've read in so many books. Simple Path to Wealth, that's one similar type of fund that has been kind of recommended quite a bit as well. Uh, Robin, on YouTube, you've definitely built quite a following. Close to 20,000, which is just huge, man. Congrats,
Thank
super
you.
congrats. Yeah. Um, how does it feel to hear that, like, knowing where you've come, and what inspired you actually to start sharing your journey on YouTube in the first place back in 2020 and 2019?
Yeah, so it feels amazing. It's crazy to think. And the weird thing about YouTube and doing like online stuff is that it's much different when you're doing a video and you're talking to people, even on social media. Like, if you engage on Blossom, like, a lot of people will see your stuff, but it's much different when you're doing it online and you're kind of in your own place, and as opposed to like if you're speaking at a public event or something like that. So it's a little bit weird in some ways. And you tend to forget like how big of a thing that really is. So for me, whenever somebody mentions it, or I see that whole 20,000 people watch my video, it's kind of like, wow, like, that's actually really crazy. So I appreciate all that. It's been awesome. It's been fantastic. It's been a bit of a tough journey. Like, it's taken a long time. It's been like 6 years or so of experimenting and doing different things. So we all got to keep that in mind. Nothing happens just like that, especially in investing. But what really got me started is, like, when I learned about investing, it was more or less the same thing. I was watching YouTube videos, researching things online, and I noticed back in the day that there wasn't a lot of Canadian content. Like, there's a lot of American content and different things talking about like Roth IRAs, and none of that stuff really applied to us. So I always had to do a lot of extra research. And at the time, I wanted to I was starting a side hustle. And I had a background in video editing, so I was like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll try this YouTube thing and try it out and see how it goes. And it's been great because it's worked out. It's kept me accountable, and it's been a lot of fun.
And in a way, you're also documenting the changes to your portfolio along the way. And I mean, as you look back, it's like, hey, 3 years ago, this was what my portfolio structure was, and this was because your video you go in depth to talk about like the why. So it's cool to see also how your psychology of money has also evolved over the years.
Yeah, definitely. That's been one of the biggest things for sure.
Yeah, it's so fantastic. Well, the congrats again. I know, as somebody who has a YouTube, I know there are a lot of efforts that go behind the scene, and sometimes we
It's
don't
a lot of
realize that.
work. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot of work, as you know.
yeah, 100%. Amazing. Your portfolio is, from one of the last portfolio updates that you shared, this appeared to be already over $300,000, which is just incredible, man. Like, I think you and your partner appear, both of you, to be young, so that's super exciting to see such a huge accomplishment at a young age. Can you walk us through a little bit, what were some of those key milestones along the way?
Yeah, for sure. I've always been a big fan of dividends and stuff like that. So I always made like dividend milestones, especially in the beginning, because, like, when you first get started investing, it can take a little while for you to get to see the results. And when you first start a portfolio, you tend to be a little bit depending on the markets, but you go up and down a lot. So it can, after 6 months, let's say you're doing okay and then the market goes down, you're just like, oh man, like, so yeah, I've always kind of used the dividends as a way to, if you're investing in good quality stocks and whatnot, you'll basically be able to easily predict them increasing as long as you're putting money in and whatnot. So that was always a big motivating factor for us. So, like hitting like $100 a month, $500 a month, $1,000 a month we just hit. So that's been really motivating, as well as the portfolio goals. So one thing we like to do, and I'm a big planner. I like to plan things out, and we've been kind of like, we look at, okay, for a year from now, what's our plan? 3 years from now, 5 years, and we kind of just roughly estimate, because you can never predict 100% how things are going to be, and life is always changing, as you mentioned, and we've been adjusting to that. But we get a general idea of like, maybe next year or a year or two from now, punching numbers in a calculator and see how things are going, and it just gives us a rough estimate. So as in terms of our portfolio, I don't know, we're at a point in our life where things are changing. We're thinking about buying a house, we're thinking about starting a family pretty soon. So that's obviously going to affect things a lot. So we're not too sure, but we're just going to stay the course and slowly adjust things as we go. And I think that's a great way to do it, because, if you have to change things, it's not as hard if you're just making small adjustments here and there. And right now we might be more tilted towards income, but maybe once things change a little bit, we'll go back to growth or whatever, we'll kind of see how things go.
Adjust your strategy as you go about it, which is probably a nice segue to my next question. I was going to ask you, you do have a multitude of accounts: TFSA, tax-free savings account, RRSP, registered retirement savings plan, and FHSA, which is first home savings account. You have also recently opened up a non-registered margin account, right? And I've read in one of your Blossom posts that you try to use different strategies for each of these accounts. Tell us more.
Yeah, so I like to be like I said, I like to plan, I like to educate myself, I like to go into things and optimize things within a reason. My goal is to always keep things fundamental and basic, but hey, if I want to put in the extra effort to squeeze out a little bit of extra gain, I'll do it, if it's worth the time and whatnot. So like, just on that note, other people getting started with investing, you don't have to make things complicated. You can keep it as simple as you want. But with those accounts, you can optimize things a lot. Our TFSA is basically our flex account. So we have growth, we have dividends, we have income in there, mostly just because it's easy for tax purposes. But we also want to focus on growth because it is a tax-free account. You want to optimize that as much as possible. The RSP is potentially going to be used for a down payment for a house as well as retirement. So it's focused on growth. Same with the first home savings account. We want to optimize those as much as possible. And, we have the flexibility. So if the markets go down, we can always just wait till things kick up a little bit to optimize those accounts as well. It does get a little bit tricky as you add in more accounts and whatnot. But so like, again, you can keep things simple. Like, I know you're a big fan of the all-in-one approach, which I think is awesome, especially for a lot of those individual accounts. If you want to kind of keep things simple, you can do that. And I think that's a great approach. And the margin account, I'll just kind of touch upon that. That's just more of something I've just been trying out and I've been researching into, and I've been learning tons of stuff about it. That's actually helped me with that account, but has also changed my perspective in my other ways I invest. So it's always great to learn new things and try out new things.
Super cool. Super cool. I want to double down on that margin account. In one of your posts, I was reading most recently, and you've been sharing on that on blogs. What sort of risk controls have you put in place to protect yourself, given that, there are some risks with margin
Yeah, for
calls and
sure.
all of that?
There definitely is. And the rules and the game is much different for margin. That's something everybody needs to understand. And I came to it kind of later in my investing journey, and I would recommend most people, probably do the same thing. Like, get those other habits built first. And then once you become more responsible, if you want to go down that route, you can. Again, we're just playing with it. It might be something I decide after a while, I don't want to do it. It's not worth it, whatever. We're just having some fun with it. But yeah, you definitely need to have some rules in place. And what I did when I was designing, getting into it, I was designing like a playbook, like some rules and stuff like that. Is I actually sat down with Chat GTP. Like, I used AI to run some ideas, to make a framework, to like, what's the risks, will this help the portfolio reduce risk and different things like that. So that really helped me out, and it gave me unbiased information, which is very important. You got to be careful with like investing in the online world. Sometimes you can get some really biased information. It's not all bad. Sometimes it's good to have bias, but you do want to make sure you're getting information that's, not going to be like that. So I sat down and I made some rules. So some of the biggest ones is like, obviously, keeping your leverage low. The bigger your portfolio, the more you can borrow by taking out a lower percentage of margin. So that helped us out by having like $300,000. Like, if I'm only going to use like 5 or 10% margin, I can have a bigger dollar amount, but have way less risk. Also, looking at your margin interest rate, making sure that your dividend, I made sure my dividend yield covers the interest rate, little things like that. Buying during dips can help you out. I wrote a post on Blossom that kind of outlined a lot of those things. And I also did a YouTube video if anybody wants to check that out, that specifically goes over a lot of these things. But yeah, we tried to make it very conservative just in case, because, there's always those risks with that kind of investing. The rules are different. It's not your money, unfortunately. So like you might be comfortable, like, be more aggressive and saving that money during a downturn. But unfortunately with those type of accounts, they make the rules. So you got to follow them, right?
Funny enough that you brought up that topic of the AI and then how you consult the AI to get unbiased decisions or unbiased advice and tips. I think it was in the news recently that I believe Albania, one of European countries, they were the first country ever to have a AI generated minister. Not a ministry for
Wow.
AI, but actually AI generated minister, because they believe and they mentioned that is a be good way to kind of combat corruption. Just so
Yeah.
fascinating the direction we are heading.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, I think the future, like those type of tools, if used responsibly, we got to remember that you got to be used responsibly, and they can make mistakes. So you got to double check things. But yeah, no, I think it's a great tool to set up plans, and you can run ideas off of it. And yeah, it was a really eye-opening experience for me. And I think in the future, it can be a great way to build those kind of things. And like you said, do it with no bias and whatnot.
100%. I want to switch a little bit gears to health. A while back, you had appendicitis
Yeah.
surgery, and yeah, I can imagine it can be definitely painful. So glad that you're recovered well and you're doing well. How did that experience shape your perspective on balancing money with life and health?
Yeah, of course. Whenever something happens like that, you got to reflect. You got to think back. But the good news is, the funny story about that whole thing is basically what happened is me and my fiance were going on a trip to Cuba, and about 2 weeks before the trip, I wasn't feeling the greatest. And I've always been a health oriented person. And one of the things I've learned at a young age is it's very important to listen to your body. And that's one of the things I've always done. So like I know how I feel. I know, like, when things aren't I don't feel good. And at the time I had like a flu-like, regular kind of not so good symptoms. And usually when I get sick, I don't get sick that often, but when I do, I get sick for like a day or two and then I'm fine. And after about a couple days got by, I got a little bit better, but then like I started feeling sick again. And I was like, okay, it's a little bit weird, but we'll see, kind of thing. And then I started getting pains in my side and my back. And then I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to be on vacation next week. I don't want to be sick, in a foreign country and have that ruin the whole experience, kind of thing, right? So like I went to the hospital, got it checked. It wasn't too bad at the time. It was just minor. And yeah, they did some tests and like, yeah, you know what? I went there just thinking it was like, whatever, just they can give me something simple to fix it. And about half an hour later, the doctor comes over and says, yeah, we got to do surgery on your appendix. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he gave me
Crazy.
two options there. So like the next morning, we went to surgery, and it turned out to be really the right move, because it was very, very inflamed. And apparently, yeah, if you don't get it fixed or if you don't get it checked right away, it can, be a very,
Be
very serious
fatal.
medical emergency for sure. So that was a very big experience for me. But yeah, it's important to manage life. It's important to manage health and wellness and whatnot. Everybody on this world, we run on different clocks and whatnot. And if you have things around you that you like, people you enjoy spending time with, make sure you always take the time to spend time with them and do those things. If you have your goals, make some sacrifice, but, remember that there's other things that are important just as well.
Health is super important. I mean, what's the point if, let's say, you accumulate all the money in the world, but if you're not
Yeah,
healthy, actually, to
exactly.
enjoy it? You've been investing now in the market for a good, I would say, 6 years or so. What are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way that you can share with us?
Biggest lesson is probably education. Educate yourself and always learn. Always be sure you're learning new things. Be open to new ideas, at least to the idea of looking into them, right? Everybody knows what they want to do. They have their own goals and whatnot, but there's always new things coming out. There's always new things to explore. Don't instantly just shoot things down. Look into them, see if they're right for you, and decide for yourself. But yeah, education and planning. You just don't see, I find, like, not just with investing, but just things in general, people don't educate themselves and they don't plan enough. Like, just get a general idea of how things are going to be, so that if, you know what to expect when things go south a little bit. Like with investing, it's like, if you're brand new, like, educate yourself to learn how the markets go, so that when your first, dip happens or the first big drop, you can kind of be prepared for it. a lot of things with investing and stuff, you just got to experience them. You can kind of get ready for them as much as you want, but like you do have to experience them. But if you plan, you educate yourself, you can be in a much better position to take advantage of them. Like for us, like when we first started investing, COVID hit pretty early. But, I kind of knew what to expect. I kind of knew what was going on. I obviously going through it, there's a little bit of anxiousness. You're not too sure, but I had a good solid plan and foundation and background that allowed me to, while everybody else was freaking out about that time, we just stayed the course. In fact, we actually were even more aggressive around that time.
Down that woman.
Yeah, exactly. So, proper education, proper planning, and in regards to, mistakes, you're going to make mistakes, and it's going to happen no matter what, right? But if at least if you can lessen those mistakes to be smaller mistakes, and you can learn from them, that's really the main thing to keep in mind.
Really good advice. Having that education, Robin, and also planning ahead really gives you that comfort and sense of confidence because
Yeah,
no matter no matter what, during those huge market downturns you're gonna definitely hear it in different places, whether it's media, whether from friends and colleagues. I remember when the pandemic happened, we were I was having some conversation with some of my colleagues, and they were telling me like, no, 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 this time is different. This time is
yeah,
different.
yeah,
If I were you,
exactly.
I would take out everything. Even as somebody who had by then I had already invested a few years, I was getting like angsty and I was like, what if they're right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, luckily I didn't change the approach, but still, had we not done a lot of those planning ahead of time, there's a higher chance that you might have been swayed to make a decision that may not be to your advantage long term.
exactly. And if you plan your approach, right? Like if that's something that does worry you, like what the idea of stocks dropping could worry you, well then you plan things out where it's like, okay, my investment strategy is going to be like we picked ETFs for that exact reason. So like if you're in a lot of individual stocks or more speculative investments, there's obviously real risk there. But if you're adopting like an ETF approach or an all-in-one fund ETF, it feels a lot more better doing that, correct? So like planning things out and identifying what your risks are, and then doing the things you have to do to kind of have offset that will help you during those rough times.
I think it goes without saying that there's a huge importance on having a partner that actually supports you and is on the same page when it comes to money and finances.
For
Money and
sure.
finances is a huge topic. How important do you feel that kind of support is when you're trying to build wealth? And can you perhaps share with us an example if that's something that you're comfortable with?
Sure. Yeah, like 100%. Like, and not just with finance, but everything you do in life. Your
Yeah.
partner you pick it's gonna make you or break you, right? Like, and it goes for you too. Like, you got to try to be the best person you can be. And yeah, for finances, it's just being on the same page. And you know what? Like, you're not always going to agree 100% with things, but at least if you can kind of come together and more or less have the same goals, and you can adjust things and get the best of both worlds. Like me and my partner, like she's great and she's awesome. Very different in a lot of different ways. Like for finances and whatnot, she's the spender, I'm the saver, and I can almost be save too much money to the point where it's not really. It causes problems, right? So she helps balance me out in that way. So we can always sit down and be like, like recently, for example, she wanted to go see a show, and tickets for shows can be a little expensive. So she's like, hey, do you want to go see a show? And I'm like, okay, how much are the tickets? And she's like, oh, they're like $100 each. I'm like, okay, but she convinces me to go. So we go, and then I come back. I'm like, you know what? I'm glad we went. It was a great time, that kind of stuff. Having a partner that you can work things out with, you can find some middle ground, and you can be on the same page and you can work together makes a huge difference. Because like, my partner, when we first started investing, she was going through school. So she was kind of working part-time. I was working kind of part-time, full-time at the time. So it was really difficult. But once she finished school, she got a full-time job and now she makes just as much money as I do. It makes a significant difference just having that extra help. And if you can be on the same page and you can work together, it makes a huge difference. And unfortunately, if you're not on the same page, you're not working together, it can cause some major problems down the line. So you definitely got to get that in check. And it's something you definitely want to focus on in your relationships for sure.
And having those conversations early on, particularly
Yeah,
as you're starting the relationship and the foundations of relationship is super crucial because the last thing you want is you're so much into it and then you realize that like this is not gonna work out, and that's not really good. Was your partner comfortable with you sharing some of your numbers and finances publicly? Because obviously you're very transparent when it comes to YouTube and Blossom. You share those, your trades and whatnot.
Yeah, she's good. Like one of the best things I love about her is that she's pretty much down for anything within reason, right? Like she's really good like that. And again, the interesting thing about like the YouTube world is like obviously like in some circles you can be a little bit more well known, but like I would say in the general day by day world, not a lot of people are in that space. Like, I've had the odd person kind of come up to me and say like, hey, I know you from YouTube kind of thing, but it very rarely happens. And I keep my online YouTube stuff separate from like a lot of my personal stuff. It's kind of there for the people who want to see it. It's there for the people who can help, but we kind of keep it separate a little bit. But at the end of the day, we're not scared. We're not shy. It's there to help people. And we've always been honest, if somebody sees like my income or my net worth and it's going to make them feel a certain way about me, it's fine. They can feel that way. If it's like a negative feeling, then I don't really want them in my life anyways, right? Or if it's a positive feeling, that's great too. But I try to keep it, as transparent and not focus on that stuff, right? Like it's there if it's there, and it doesn't have to be part of my identity, so to speak.
How do you balance essentially that time that it takes for creating content with staying also disciplined in your own investing life, all of that?
Yeah, that's a tricky thing. I think that's the hardest part is balancing things, and I've had issues with this in the past. I'm very much a person who like if I like something, I want to learn about it. I want to dive into it. I want to learn everything there is, and I get hyper focused. So it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing sometimes. Like I tend to overdo things sometimes. So I've had issues with burnout in the past, and it's a very real thing. You got to be careful, right? So for me, like with the YouTube channel, like back in the day, I was much more focused on doing more content, creating it, doing it more of a full-time kind of thing. But at that time, I was still trying to figure out money. I was still trying to pay the bills and stuff. And I found like the stress of doing that was just too much. So like I've kind of switched gears a little bit, and now I do it more on the side to make a little bit of extra income. And I have my regular job I do that kind of pays the bills, and it's much more better. I don't have to worry about it. I can do it in the way I want to do it. And, balancing that. And the cool thing about YouTube is like, once you build it up, you can kind of like take breaks. Like I could, like, let's say my life is just busy and I want to take like a 3-month break or something like that. I can take a 3-month break, come back, and it's all still there. Like I never left. So that's the great thing about it. And the community has been great like that. People still watch my videos after 4 or 5 years. It's kind of crazy to think about it, but yeah, so I definitely owe it to everybody who's supported me, and it's been great. But like, yeah, it is a struggle. It is something that you have to do what you got to do sometimes, and your health and your family and all those things, they come first. And yeah, that would be my advice for most people.
You've definitely developed and grown a loyal fan base. I would definitely say that, and I think part of it has to do with also you haven't changed in a way that some people as they grow bigger they might start really feeling too proud of themselves and really are not like they're a different person. But
Yeah,
I mean, I've watched your recent videos, I've also watched your early videos. You're the same guy, and honestly, like the one thing that, and I mean even for today, the same background, same old
yeah, yeah.
mustache. Love that.
That's funny. Yeah, yeah. Like I've never been afraid to be myself, and I think that's what it is, to be transparent and to be yourself. And there's not a lot of that in today's world, especially online, and especially in the finance world. Like on YouTube, there's not a lot of openness, not a lot of transparency. And when you kind of like people know, like you can kind of tell when somebody's really being themselves, when they're not, when they're kind of putting up something. And I get it, like a lot of that stuff, like there's a game, right? Like you got to get clicks, you got to get views, you got to make money. But that's again one of the reasons why I've shifted with the whole YouTube thing to doing it part-time, is because I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about producing content I don't want to produce. I don't have to worry about sponsors that I don't feel are good on my channel and whatnot. I want to be able to do things in the best way. And yeah, I've always kind of been myself and not been afraid to do that. And I would recommend most people do the same. If you want to stand out in today's world, be transparent, be yourself, and be honest, because there's a lot of that missing in today's world.
So much easier that way too, because then you don't have to constantly imagine, like if you were trying to kind of be in a different active, essentially in a certain way, like quote unquote, then it's just you have to constantly hold on. But as if you're yourself.
You'll frustrate yourself, but you're
Yes.
also like, people will appreciate it more if you're just yourself. Like I
Yeah.
know it'll be a little bit uncomfortable at first because maybe some people will judge you, but you'll find that people will just appreciate that, and the people you really want in your life will
Yeah.
come there. So like, yeah.
Yeah. For folks that are just starting out, what is your point of advice or learnings in the past that you've had for those people?
My advice for most people getting started is just take it slow. The biggest thing that's going to get you the best result is just saving capital. So if you can prioritize saving money, of course, it's important to find a good investment, find investment that works for you, that aligns with your goals, that's going to get you the returns you want. But the biggest goal that's going to get you there, and the biggest thing that worked for us, was just saving the capital. Like prioritize your personal finance. And then, like, especially if you're young, because like in your younger years, you're probably not going to have that much money. You're going to probably be a little bit lower income and whatnot. You're going to have more bills, all that kind of stuff. If you can get those skills set, in stone, then you mature, and as your life conditions get better, and as you naturally, like, you move up your career ladder and you make more money and stuff like that, and your situation gets better, you'll be in a much better position to take advantage of that. So that's the biggest thing. But like, honestly, like, you can try to look for the best stock with the best return. You can try to time the market. You can try and do all those things. But like the guy who just throws money in to a good solid investment and just focuses on that and does that as quickly as possible and grows that capital, you're just going to get the best result, because a portfolio that has $100,000 is going to outperform one that has 10,000. So, keep things simple and focus on saving the money. That would be my recommendation. And then slowly you can kind of, do all the other stuff.
Such a great advice. 100% agree with you. And I've personally seen that, like even for our case, because that's something you can control much more easier. You
Exactly.
can
Yeah.
control your habits as opposed to like, ooh, even if you are so lucky and picked up what you think is the perfect business and company, you don't know how market sometimes is going to behave.
Yeah, and it comes with so much psychological problems too, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, do I buy it? Do I sell it now? Do I put my money in?
Yes.
Like, if you just focus on saving the money and putting in a good investment, like you'll find like your portfolio will just grow faster. And I've kind of noticed that myself too. I don't know if you guys can see my cat running back and forth there.
Yeah.
We got a kitten recently, so she's, it's early in the morning here and she's running around. She's crazy. So yeah, that's
What's her
that.
name?
So my girlfriend wanted to call her Cappuccino, which is a bit of a mouthful. So we call her Cacino, and that's her name there. So, but she's awesome. But anyways, yeah. So we like to plan things out, like I mentioned, over a couple years. Long term, I'm not too sure, honestly. I think in our situation, obviously there's some big things coming up. If we do decide to like buy a house, that's probably going to be the biggest thing. I think for most people, especially the younger generation, is, buying a house, saving the money. It's going to be your biggest investment. So that's probably the biggest thing. Also, if we decide to start a family and whatnot, that's going to be a big thing. But 5 to 10 years from now, like the long term view, we're kind of setting things up so that like come retirement, come like later ages, we don't really have to worry about it. Like, I know we're going to probably have enough money that we're not going to need to worry about it, especially with the way we've been saving money and whatnot. So really it's kind of more about the shorter term, like you said, the next 5, 10, 15 years, like what do we want from life? What is our focus on there? And I don't know, it all depends. Like the portfolio could get really big. We could pull some of it to spend some things in life. Our situation could change. I don't know. But it's exciting. And like you said, it's crazy to think that like the portfolio is already at that $300,000 mark. If you showed me that like 5, 10 years ago, I'd probably crap my pants, because it's like, that's crazy to think like that it's
Yeah.
that big. And like even just over the past week or two, we had a bit of a jump up in the market. I don't know if you noticed, but I think we're already at like
That's
$315,000.
amazing.
It's crazy, man. Like
Yeah.
it's nuts. Like if you do the work and you put the effort in, it's crazy how much it pays off. But yeah, we're just going with the flow. And yeah, the big focus for us will be, the next 5 or 10 years, and figuring out what we want to do with life.
That's so exciting. And I mean, what incredible, exciting years ahead as you go through it. I want to ask you a few quick ones. So just gonna maybe give you a few words and maybe words or phrases and just give me your reflection on that. So traveling, I know the topic came up and you talked about, it seems like you and your partner love traveling. So what's, if you had to pick one or two places that your favorite places that you visited, could be country, could be city, what would they are?
Sure. So like we haven't done too much traveling, but we have definitely done a little bit of traveling, mostly within Canada, but we have been to a few places. So for example, when I was 18, my sister had a wedding in Punta Cana, which was a very, very nice trip. All our friends and family went. It was such a good time. So that stands as one of the big trips we've done that I very much enjoyed. Our trip to Cuba was really fun too. That was, just to give some context to that, is my father, unfortunately, a couple years ago passed away, and him and his stepmom, that was one of their favorite places to go. So we went on a family trip for him and stuff like that. So that was a really special moment for us, and that was a really fun trip. And we've traveled across Canada. I've been to BC. BC is beautiful, places like that. But the traveling definitely for us is definitely going to be something we're going to do in the future, right? And like I kind of told my fiance, like she's like kind of like she wants to like let's do everything now, and I'm like, hey, we can do little things. Let's plan this out. Let's kind of, save the money, and then we can do multiple trips over time and enjoy it over the course of our life. So again, she motivates me to kind of like do some of that stuff now, and that's important because you never know when things could change. And I'm more like long-term focused, but like traveling is definitely something that we do want to do, but we've just been doing like little things here and there in the meantime.
I was gonna ask you. I'm not sure if you're a big reader, but I do see a lot of books behind you. So I'm gonna assume that probably you like reading at least.
Like I like nonfiction educational content. My partner likes like the fantasy, the books, and all those kind of those traditional books that most people like to read, kind of thing. So a lot of that's a mix of things, but unfortunately, like most people, I like to finish things. I mean, I like to start things but not finish them. So a lot of those books are kind of like they're kind of read, they're kind of not read. And that's a bit of a problem of mine. Is I do like to kind of sometimes I commit to too many things at once.
Yeah, keep yourself busy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something I've been trying to do is, okay, let's, like, let's pick this one thing, let's finish that first, and then we can move on to the next thing. So, yeah. For financing, a lot of the stuff I've read has been online, just
Yeah.
because I think a lot of it's more recent and a little
Yes,
bit
right.
more applies more. But I have read some of the classic books. One I did read a couple years ago that I really liked was called Wealthy Like Rabbits. I don't know if you've heard that one. It's a Canadian focused book that's a little bit more modern. It was a kind of an interesting read. Pretty basic, pretty good for beginners. But that was a good one. And yeah, like I just kind of like I've always been like a big reader of like blogs and stuff like that. And one of the big things that got me into starting the YouTube channel was reading other people's success. Like I remember like as a young kid reading like people blogging and making money doing that kind of stuff and
Yeah.
doing updates and stuff like that. And that always used to motivate me, inspire me. So that's kind of another reason why I did the YouTube channel and whatnot.
Cool. In another world, would you have any like a dream job that you would do, or is it like maybe if you're already doing that, that's fantastic too? But I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, like, work has always been an interesting concept for me because, like, I have a lot of passions. I'm a very creative person, so I like art, I like music, and like, I remember as a teenager, like, I learned to play guitar, and that was something I was like obsessed with. And then when I got older, I'm thinking in my head, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be in a band, I'm gonna be a rock star, whatever kind of thing, right? Like, that was what I was gonna be. And then like I kind of thought about it, I was like, is that something I really want to do with my life? And it's like, no, not really. Like, I like music, I like playing music, but like what comes with that territory just wouldn't be something I'd want to do. For work for me has always been kind of just as a means to, you got to enjoy it. Everybody's different. Some people will do their passion, while some people work as just something to make some money and then they do their passions on the side.
Fuel your passion.
I've kind of been a bit of both. And for me, the finance and the money is really there to create us freedom and flexibility to do what we want to do. So work is, you got to enjoy it, you got to like it. But at the end of the day, we're all kind of more or less doing it to make money, right? To create our freedom, to create our financial security and whatnot. So for me, work has always kind of been more or less kind of like that.
Awesome. Hey, Robin, it's been so fantastic talking to you. Honestly, I love your content to begin with. I really have so much appreciation for you. But now, having talked to you, I can see why so many people actually relate with you. You're so authentic. You're so wonderful. And I love that about you. Like, it's so amazing, man. Thank you so much for coming and accepting my invite, coming on the show, sharing your weekend morning, if you like almost an hour here, like we talking
Yeah,
about this even
it's been
before we
great.
hit the record. So super appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a slice.
Yeah. Thank you.